this one just very brief sharing on the systematic literature review using PRISMA approach. And for the first start, I will try to at least brief you about the function of this literature review, because later we will have the types of literature review. So for the general literature review, you'll benefit for at least 4 people. The first one is the researcher. Like us, we would like to avoid reinvent the wheel, the duplication of other study, and we will also try to set up our future research using the literature review that we have read before. So at the last part, we will have the future research, at least to where we should tackle, for which aspect. So in this literature review paper, they also mention about the future research. And in the literature review, they also they also compare the current theory and existing approaches that have been used by the previous researchers. And from there, we can identify the research gap, which is actually closely related to the future research. And especially for the systematic review, they also have the appraisal, which the author will comment on the comparison. So they will try to incorporate the appraisal in the paper as well. So for the second party that will benefit is the policy makers lah. So at least they can secure funding and try to implement the law. And for the practitioners like engineers, they will, for those that have been left university and research world, they will try to update themselves using literature review, because literature review papers is actually pool of papers that incorporate in one paper, so they can at least have the general view what is actually current progress or current development in their practicing field. And for us, for the student lah, the PG student, it will be a part of the journey, our research journey, because that is the baby step that we need to make. Especially we would like to have the research gap, and later on for the different
baby step, mother step.
because the difficulty level is quite high for the literature review paper. So but using to tackle the difficulty is actually we have a system that called PRISMA. So before we go to the PRISMA approach, we need to understand that the PRISMA is actually the SLR, the systematic literature review. Beforehand, we have the narrative or others also called journalistic literature review, which we already familiar with this one. In the review paper that we already seen before, or some of the researchers like our lecturer, our supervisor have been through this one. The research question is quite broad instead of the SLR. In SLR, in the second part, which is the before we enter the method section, we need to specify this question. This is question 1, 2, 3, and 4. And from this part, later on we will discuss in the result section. So for this search method, usually not specified in the narrative, but in the systematic literature review, it is explicitly, which is it is what we say, it is mandatory to report the search method that we use. For example, we search the papers and the research study from which databases and which sources we need to declare. And for the study selection, We also have the explicit selection criteria that we put in the systematic literature review, which we have the inclusion and exclusion criteria, which I will explain later on. And lastly, for the quality assessment, for the appraisal in terms of the quality of research, the selected research papers that we have. So the critical appraisal also some authors also include the appraisal part, which is more to discussion of what they have selected. So using the systematic literature review, we are using PRISMA. PRISMA is one of the method lah. So PRISMA is stand for preferred reporting item for systematic review and meta-analysis. So as we can see, the PRIS, the first the first part is the systematic review part, and MA is the stand for meta-analysis. So PRIS itself without MA is actually the qualitative synthesis, whereas the MA part, meta-analysis part, is more to quantitative synthesis, quantitative analysis that more touched to using statistic. Yes, statistic. So for this PRISMA approach, we are actually reporting evidence-based. So evidence-based means we try to extract one by one evidence by one evidence. So we report it and compare it. For example, the features is compared to another features. We compare like that. So for the PRISMA approach, we have basically it's actually four basic structure that we have here. The left hand side is the reference that have been given in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, as PRISMA had been introduced in that year, 2009. Yes, 2009. So the general reference there is identification as the first step, and go to screening step, and then the third step is eligibility, and the last one is what would be included in our analysis. So this is 4-phase flow diagram, and the right hand side is what I've been reporting in my paper actually. So I've actually tried to replicate the same figure, because this figure is actually have been given as standard. So we need to follow the standard. We don't have to be more creative in terms of this part. So we just report as what other researchers report. So other researchers also understand what we actually do. So identification, screening, eligibility, or for this part, I divided for the SLR and meta-analysis. So we'll go through 27 item checklist, because for to do this one, we have a specific checklist. It is clearly stated that we are, for the title, for example, for the title, we need to have this term, systematic review or meta-analysis or both. So for the title should have this term for PRISMA. For the abstract, also same, need to follow the same structure, where we have the objective, we need to report objective, data sources, study eligibility, the participants, and all that. And also for the introduction, methodology that we use, and for the result, how we report it, discussion and funding. It's actually the common structure of any papers, but how we report it, we need to follow this itemized reference lah. Okay. So for the review protocol is actually how we we should conduct our PRISMA approach, PRISMA analysis ni. So for the first step, we of course we should have a topic and we narrow it down. So at least we know the search term later on. So for the objective, at least the objective here is no need to have full sentence of objective, or we just need to have the general idea what we're gonna tackle in our research study. And we try to identify using search term, because search term here is very important, very, very important. And some of the researchers also use a software for this. For example, Atlas T, which Iqmal very familiar with this software. Ya, Iqmal kan?
Cuma lepas ni ajar Atlas T.
Atlas TI tu kan. So this Atlas TI is actually for the search term. It's very, very good software. And then eligibility criteria, we need to identify the years we considered for my research study for systematic literature review. Before this, I have considered 10 years punya research. But Dr. Naim also comment on this one. Maybe we need to have wider years to at least consider. So this one also depends on the research area that we are trying to address. So for me, maybe 2000 so
Yeah.
2000 up to 2020, so 20 years to consider. So maybe some of you the research area may be different one upon research area lah. Not every research area is having the same years considered. So for the language, usually we will consider only English and publication type. We need to specify whether we only try to gather conference and journal papers only. So maybe for the pre-experiment or just for a magazine, for example, we did not consider. So for the sources, databases, we need to report it, or we usually, if we manually search or stumble upon one good paper, so we can put and also report in the systematic literature review. And then for the screening part, we need to report like this, because this one is actually the sequence process, which we will start with screening only upon the title and abstract. We actually didn't look into the result and the conclusion part. Only from the title and abstract, then we do the screening, and then only we download the full text. Maybe some university have subscribed to specific databases. And then eligibility means here is we maybe try to omit the empirical studies or pilot studies. Instead of we try to have a good comparison of full research study. So we don't have to compare this. Maybe this one different upon other researchers, but this one need to report also. So for the data collection, we need to be transparent. We are using survey forms or questionnaire. Okay, for this one person or two independent researchers, we have discussed before. It is from the title, systematic literature review or systematic review only. So from there, the third researchers will resolve the disagreement and all that. Okay, for the last item is the variable that we would like to compare. So for this sharing, actually more to practical than only some of us can understand how to conduct the systematic literature review. So for this one, I will use the Scopus search engine to share with you. So let us open this one. Okay, for PG student, we have this one. We try to we try to enter IUM library and then click Scopus. We'll have this one. So for Scopus, we'll use advanced search. So advanced search, usually what I would do is I'm using the query string here and using the operators that have been given at the right hand side. So there are actually many of codes that we can use, but the one that I'm using is actually this one. This one is title, abstract, and keyword. So we can just put plus sign here. So this coding is actually convey to us that any keyword that we will enter inside this parenthesis is they will the Scopus data Scopus advanced search will try to search in title, in the abstract, and also in the keyword. So for example, for my research study, we'll have this one. Let me open one. Okay, let me open the paper that I have submitted before. So for example, this one. Okay, my paper, the one that I have submitted before. Okay. So okay, for the keywords term for this one, SD children, emotion, thermal. Okay, for example, we just try, for the sake of demonstration, we try to put thermal. Okay, thermal. So we try to search here. So definitely it will come out 2 million result. So definitely not we want. So we try to give more detailed terms. Thermal and maybe emotion. Okay, thermal, we can have this one, and so just and emotion, thermal and emotion. So try to search. Definitely we will have reduced amount of result. So we try to see whether this is the one that related to our study, or else we can edit more. Edit and try to put another n or and children, for example. So we have 30 documents. So for this one, okay, for example, okay, Kak Nazrin punya paper pun ada kat sini kan? Okay, so this one, okay, maybe related.
Merla tu, Merla.
Merla.
Merla ni banyak buat paper.
Oh,
Hafiz guna paper dia sebagai reference dulu.
I see.
CLCM.
Merla eh? Okay, so okay, at this stage for systematic literature review, we can further filter using open access or this one. This one here we can select the year that we are interested in. Okay, for example this one. So we try to limit to. Okay, so okay dapat 25 kan? So go at the bottom part and display. We want to display as much as possible. So for this one we have 25 kan tadi kan? 25. So okay, as per se we try to select 50 and we'll have all the papers here in our screen. So try to select all and export. Then we need to choose. For systematic literature review, we need to compare each and every paper. So for the sake of easy comparison later on, we'll try to compare in Excel, as for example. So for this one, just pick the one that very important for us. For example, the author, year, and the publisher. What more? Abstract. The one that we would like to have the metadata we call here metadata. See, so okay, I think that's all. Okay, try to export. Okay, export here. So we will have the Excel like this. Okay, so open it. Macam ni kan. Okay, we will have like this. The author, year, link, abstract, and the one, we can have keyword also. So from here, okay, back to this slide. Okay, I've done explain to you the year, export. Okay. Also, okay, this one done. Okay, this one we can export to Excel. Okay, from here, it's actually we try to to make the comparison like this. Okay, normally what I would do is I try to go back to this figure. Okay, so for example, we have the 25 records from Scopus only. So from Scopus, we need to declare like this. Okay, so for Scopus, the search engine, and need to declare this Scopus, which query that you have put in the advanced search, and then the filter that you have put in, and the hits that you have. So for example, in the demonstration before, we have 25 kan? So 25. So we put here. We just report it. And we do the same exact thing for the other online database, IEEE Explore, Science Direct, Scopus. The query might be different, depends on the output or result that you will eventually have. So the terms maybe they ada differ sikit lah sebab every search engine is not using the same code kan. So we try to play around with that. And if you can notice here, we also have the additional record here. Additional records means it is not really from any specific online database, but it's actually from the reference that you have read before. Maybe you have one good paper, so you go through to the reference part and you come up with, oh, this is another good paper. So that is, we will report it under additional records. So maybe Dr. Naim mentioned about, oh, Arif, this is one good paper, so I will put in this section. Maybe Dr. Hazina also mentioned, Dr. Nick also mentioned, okay, supply to me another paper, additional paper. So I'll put in this section. So for that one, okay, we try to report like this. This is from online databases. This is the one that manually search, and we try to remove the duplicates. So for the duplication, we can use Excel very easy using this one. So we just go to maybe this one, title. After this one, only one source, which is the Scopus. So maybe later on you have the IEEE access. So you just put at the bottom part, you try to combine in one master list. So you try to select the title column, and you can implement the conditional formatting, highlight rows. Maybe you can use the duplicate values in your function, and then the Excel will highlight to you which is the duplicate. Maybe it is available in Scopus. It is also available in IEEE Access. So that one we don't want the duplication. So we try to remove. We just pick one. So for example, we try to pick the one that come from Scopus. So it is the same research study. So we only select. So for example, that one only one research paper lah. And then for that part, some of the paper will be excluded. So it means the exclusion part will be excluded. And then go through, okay, this is the role of author one, for example. He will screen all the papers in the pool of papers. He will go through the title and abstract only. So from this Excel, we can have the title here. Depends on what information we extract from the online database search. So we'll have for example, this one, the title, so the abstract. So author number one will focus only to these two columns. So for him to screen, maybe the easiest way he can screen maybe like this, screening, for example. So we can try to read the title, or this one, or mutation, maybe no. Or normally I do like this one. Related, I put 1. Related. 2, not related. 3, maybe. So you can put like this. Oh, this one not related, 2. This one 1. This one 2. This one, you just code like this. This one 3. So later on, we can use the same technique, conditional formatting, to omit the research paper that we don't want. So that one is easier. So we have done the screening part. So this is the excluded papers or excluded research study. So we need also to report how many we have excluded. And then we go to eligibility. Eligibility means here whether you have it, the full text punya article, because some university didn't subscribe on the online databases, or some because for us, for the PG student, we normally use Sci-Hub. Maybe some of you have heard about that one, Sci-Hub.
Yeah, backdoor.
Backdoor to to get the research paper. So for the research study that very related, but we don't have access using university access, so we will have the Sci-Hub lah to help us. So we'll have the eligibility. Eligibility also means we omit the review papers. We see, oh, this is commentaries or only editorial from the magazine, so we omit that one. We don't want that. And pre-experiment, which is more to pilot study punya experiment kan. So okay, we omit that one. Okay, that one. Then only we go to another stage, which is inclusion and exclusion criteria. So inclusion and exclusion criteria, we also need to report it very transparently like this. So the one that we include is in 10 years period. So we include also the journal and only conference paper. We don't want magazine, we don't want pilot study, we don't want that. And then we only pick the one that related to thermal imaging and statistics. This one is related to my study lah. And then we specify, this one is for human only, because some the thermal imaging of course they do to another living things like cow or goat. So I don't want that, because I want to compare only human. And then you can include and exclude. You can put anything here as long as you be transparent what you include and exclude. Okay, so for the, I think the last part here, okay, the one quality. I think this we should okay, this one inclusion criteria, and we also need to report for the meta-analysis that compare using statistic. How many papers that we compare? So we also mention here. So if we complete the general flow diagram here, it's actually we have done the PRISMA approach now for the systematic literature review. So if you would like to extend, for example, our research, we need to go back to stage 1 lah. As far as you notice, it really relies on the search term. So that's why the search term really play an important role here. So keyword here, maybe we can brainstorm among ourselves, especially during the meeting with the supervisors as well, kan?
Yes.
So I think that's all. That's the general overview of SLR, systematic literature review. Is there any question that you want to ask me or don't understand?
Yeah, I think this is very informative and very eye-opening to me, at least. Thank you very much, Arif. Nanti Arif boleh tak ataupun siapa-siapa boleh tak edit recorded video ni, just potong bahagian ni saja. Dan kita save lah benda ni. I think next time kita boleh refer. Sebab panjang kan meeting ni, kita nak just focus on this saja. So, ada apa-apa komen tak daripada the members? To me, this is something very new to me.
I pun impressive lah sebab I pun tak pernah buat literature review macam ada step.
Itulah, nanti I share apa dia punya slide ni lah
Ya. Recorded video dan slide.
Lepas tu lepas dah very informative lah, thank you so much. Tapi nak tanya, lepas tu kan dia ada macam dalam literature review kan, SLR ni, kita kena report ke macam the differences method dia ke?
Yes, kita kena report. Report dia sebenarnya macam ni, macam I punya paper ni ni kan. Kita last kali kita akan come out dengan ni lah, approach apa yang diorang guna berapa banyak kan. So for example this one kan, features, ada features, banyak-banyak features. Ada certain researcher dia tak guna approach tu, so dia come out dengan satu table besar ni lah.
Okay. So at the end lepas tu dia compare juga method macam feature extraction method, orang ni pakai apa, macam classification method orang ni pakai apa, macam tu juga kan.
Yeah, thank you Dr. Nick. Actually I forgot to mention daripada Excel tadi kan. So ni screening part, kemudian kita go to eligibility part kan. Eligibility part, whether we have the full text or not kan. So continuing to the column on the right hand side, we can put objective number 1. So for example, objective number 1 for me maybe the stimuli. So I can put another column comparison for stimuli, and then for features as mentioned by Dr. Nick just now, and also the classification. So from this we can have a thorough comparison lah. And for at least for PG student like us, we also can kill the thing that really dilemma for us, cari paper tak habis-habis kan. So at least we have covered the for at least 7 online databases. So it's actually more than enough, or else we can add more later on rather than we just search blindly kan.
Betul. Biasa kalau saya baca kan, saya just macam nampak dia tulis satu quotation, we use the search in Google Scholar of this keyword from this year to this year. Macam tu je kalau dia biasa. Tak soroh lah.
In fact, Arif pun buat instrument pun dia compare kan Arif? Instrument, different type of camera.
Betul, boleh juga. Ni kamera type. Boleh tambah sini. Macam tu lah.
Macam buat product review lah.
So at the end kita boleh nampak lah kan.
Untuk orang yang OCD macam saya, bila tengok ni macam lega, okay dah cover semua. Macam tu lah. Siapa boleh argue dah je.
For everybody yang buat PhD, kita sentiasa rasa macam cukup ke tak cukup ke, macam ada je lagi kan yang tak cover.
Betul.
Senang je ambil cakap supervisor saya. If you want to cover everything, you will not graduate.
Saya ambil kata-kata supervisor media dulu.
Okay. So I think thank you very much Arif